a problem. Welcome back, guys. How is everybody doing today? Of course, we are back with some more live streaming fun. We're going to be talking Manchester United. We're going to be talking Arsenal, Spurs, a little bit of Everton and Beto and Sean Dyche and all that good stuff. Guys, got any questions? Get into the chat right now. Let me know how you've been this week. What games you're looking forward to in the Premier League. Welcome to Mulder in the chat. Welcome to James in the chat. And Mahad, as always. Big discussion today is going to be on Pellistri, whether he's ready for Manchester United. Obviously, United have got no right wingers at the moment following disciplinary issues with Jadon Sancho and Anthony. So we'll have to discuss that. We'll have to break that one down. But also from a sense of the rest of the Premier League, the Spurs versus Sheffield United game is a game we're going to touch on, talk a little Cameron Archer, and then of course Arsenal versus Everton at Goodison Park on Sunday, which is gonna be big. Mulder, let's face it, Bruno will be playing wide right. I think you are pretty spot on there, sir. I think that's definitely something that's probably going to happen. It's one of those situations where, Manchester United have a bit of a problem. They've spent £180 million on right wingers and have none at the football club right now. Welcome to Johnny as well. Johnny, how are you thinking about Newcastle this season? Obviously, with Newcastle and their issues with the draw in the Champions League, they've probably got the hardest draw they could have imagined. AC Milan, Dortmund, PSG. But quite frankly, I see they might get out the group, but the Premier League form will suffer. Shout out to Carl as well in the chat. Excited for tomorrow's game. Me too as well. I'll be going to Man United TRA. Hopefully, be a good game of football. That's all we really want. But let's dive into it straight away. Let's dive into the big questions of today. First up, let's talk about Pellistri. Is Facundo Pellistri really ready to start for Manchester United? United have got massive problems on the right wing. Jadon Sancho, Anthony, both missing for different issues. Pellistri's a player that was brought in from Uruguay, from Penarol, signed when he was 18 years old. In terms of his style, he's very much a right winger that will look to take the ball on and take on the fullback. Frequently, he'll look to get the ball wide, hit the byline, look to cut it back. He also likes to drive inside, looking for opportunities for 1-2s, or alternatively, just carrying from that inverted, narrow position and looking to get the cross in the box. What I like about Pellistri, he's got a really good awareness of the fullback behind him. In terms of the fullbacks wide, Pellistri will sit in that inside channel, and either he'll look for those underlap opportunities or look to balls to feet and then driving inside. Or alternatively, the usual thing you'll see with Pellistri is holding the width in the final third and looking to take on the opposition fullback. I think one of the big things with Pellistri, a lot of his game is built on pace. It's built on kind of drawing an opposition challenge in, a little jink on the inside or the outside and then beating the man. It's kind of like trying to sucker you in and then going on the outside and using his pace. I think one of his biggest sort of strengths is that ability and that acceleration. He does like to knock the ball past the opponent to get into that final third. In the final third, for a young player, he's got quite good decision making in a sense of when to cross from deep, when to hit the byline, when to cut the ball back. I really like him when he's in the wide areas. He slows himself down. He looks for the teammates ahead of him and creates, which obviously will massively help with Højlund and Marcus Rashford, with Bruno Fernandez arriving late. Of course, United now have got two real options to hit in the penalty area, Rashford and Højlund, from that right-hand side. It'll be natural right-footed deliveries. Gone are the days that we'll see, players cut back onto that left foot. Pellistri naturally right-footed. He will get the ball onto that right foot and look to cross the ball. But the big thing as well with, Rashford and Højlund clearing the box, I think Bruno Fernandez arriving late on the penalty area could be a real weapon for Manchester United with Pellistri. So let's dive into a little bit of analysis on his kind of style and how he looked. Because I think one of the big things and my concern with Pellistri for Manchester United is he's not played that much games in European football. Man United have let him down massively. We'll go into the numbers in a little while, but for a player that bursts onto the scene in Uruguay, big talent, comes over to play for Manchester United, goes on a loan spell at Alves, hardly starts there. He just hasn't played the football, and that has really hampered his development. Jumping into the chat, who do you think's better, Amad or Pellistri? I think right now, I'd say Amad. Amad's had a season in the Championship with, of course, Sunderland and he's come out, absolutely flying. Ahmad is a inverted goal-scoring winger. He's a player that will receive the ball in the wide areas and get shots off. 37 games played, 27 starts, 13 goals and 3 assists. He's a goal-scoring right winger. He's kind of your Iron Robin type player. Not as quick as Iron Robin, but he's more based on those little short touches, but he's really good at getting shots away. More of a goal scorer, whereas I'd class Pellistri at the moment as more of a creator, a player that's going to naturally hit the byline and get the ball into the box. The kind of one of the games that he played for Manchester United and looked good was against Charlton Athletic in the EFL Cup. Very much held his width on the right-hand side. You can see there after the substitutions, Pellistri, number 28, is kind of in that wide position, looking to take the opposition on the outside. Got an assist in this game for Marcus Rashford, completing 100% of his passes and creating 2 chances. So I do think, Ahmad is definitely better than Pellistri at the moment, more complete, better decision-making. And physically, what Mahad's saying in the comments, completely agree with that. He's just at a better level. I think technically as well, Ahmad is at a much higher level than Pellistri, but Ahmad is injured at the moment, so Pellistri is the player that we're going to have to really use. Either it will be Bruno Fernandez on the right wing or Facundo Pellistri. So take a look at Pellistri as a player. We've got some clips from his days at Penarol. This is against Siroa, I think, in the Uruguayan league. Again, I've had to go back with this analysis. This is why it's frustrating, because I've had to go seriously back to have a look at a player that Man United have signed, at 18, and he's just literally not played enough in European football. But anyway, let's take a look at this assist that he got. I think it's a good kind of way to look at him as a player. He's a player that likes to receive the ball in the wide areas. What we'll see here is a kind of switch from central midfield out to Pellistri in a wide position. I think from the start, when you look at Pellistri and his skill set, I quite like his first touches is pretty good from the stuff I've seen, but he will focus on beating on the outside mainly. He does that in this move, looks to draw the defender in. I think one of the big things, as we mentioned, it's little touches and then a little explosion to beat a man. He tries to draw you in with little touches, then will go on the outside, basically sizes up the fullback, goes on the outside, and you can see that the big thing, I think, with his pace is he's quite quick, which means players try and dive in on him to try and stop him in his tracks, as we see here. Pellistri goes on the outside, then comes back on himself, which I really like. Heads up football in the penalty area. You can see his heads up at the moment, cuts the ball back, and the finish is applied. But really good jinky wing play. There's almost something old school about Pellistri in a sense of kind of when he's in these areas looking to take people on the wide part of the pitch. Let's just take Manchester United in a bit of an attacking shape. Let's say Casemiro's joined the attack for this one. The big thing with Pellistri is he will kind of start you. He'll slow you down and speed you up. So as we saw there, he kind of is shifting to go on the outside. The defender comes over to kind of try and deal with it, explodes past him. Another defender comes on the cover. He goes against it. You see how he's always kind of either going on the outside of where the defender's motion is, or alternatively he's disbalancing him as he did when he got into the penalty area. So again, a player that has got potential. We'd see more of that potential if Manchester United weren't such a poorly run club. I think the big thing is the loans that they've sent him on have been absolutely useless. He just simply hasn't played. And you need development. Development is such a big thing. Pellistri is 21 now, but I'd argue that he's like an 18-year-old in terms of the minutes he's played so far. So again, that could elongate his career. But we've got to treat him as a youth player. We've got to treat him as an 18-year-old, in my opinion, just at the moment. So that was the assist that he got. Really good assist on the outside, kind of utilising that pace and that ability to beat a man on the outside, and a good finish to round it off. But to just take it a little bit further, we've got some more sort of clips from his time in Uruguay. This is another assist. This is kind of utilising slightly different characteristics of Pellistri. And I think the big one with this is it's kind of, he's driving inside, he's cutting inside. He does go on the outside, but he also likes to take a jink on the inside in a sense of when he's received in this wide area, when the sort of play opens up, he will cut inside and look for opportunities for the 1-2, which I think for Bruno Fernandez playing inside right could really work for Manchester United with Pellistri moving off the ball. It's just kind of one of his traits, and it's a good variation in his wing play. You know, he's a winger, but he can come inside. You know, it's not a traditional inverted winger like a Mad Diallo looking to cut in, shoot, cab, but he's more of that kind of driving inside and looking to, you know, use his pace, you know, in the middle. Cab in the chat, when is Ahmad supposed to be back? December. Unfortunately, this would be a great time for Ahmad right now, and we get to see such a talented individual. Pellistri's got work to do, but he can still do it. So Pellistri receiving out wide. The fullback plays the ball, then looks for the underlap, which opens up that channel for Pellistri to cut inside. You know, it's something that I like with his decision making. He's got quite a decent little tactical awareness about him, which I think really helps, you know, him excel in these types of moments. You know, checking inside, driving into that central area. And again, that kind of the style that we spoke about before, little touches, committing players in and then bursting on the outside. Does it when he's going on the outside, does it when he's going on the inside in these moments. This moment is kind of him cutting in and looking for the 1-2, you know, really good part of his play. Drops the ball into central midfield, continues his run off the ball, receives it back in the penalty area, low cross into the box, and Pedro take the lead. But really good sort of wing play, but this a little bit more alternative, driving inside, cutting inside, looking for the 1-2 and getting on the end of it. Good play, really good play. And this is something that, you know, it took me a while to find this, you know, clips like this, because it's been a while since he's been playing. This is the worry. This is the real worry, is like throwing him in at the deep end, you know, is something that you wouldn't really, you know, want to do. You'd want to integrate him this season like Alejandro Garnacho. And this is where we think about last season, where he stayed at United and just didn't play, where it's frustrating. It's really frustrating for his, you know, for him and his development, is that like he didn't get a chance, like Ahmad did, to play a full season, you know, in the Championship, let's say. Moving on to kind of a more variants of his game. We've got another assist, this time coming from a kind of a deep cross. You know, more wing play, receiving out wide, setting himself really well, and then dropping a fantastic ball onto the centre forward at the back post. This is something that we want to see for Rasmus Højlund. You know, you take this instant, it's a really good floated cross into the box. You know, we're looking at how for United to create, if they can get to these situations where Pellistri's slightly inside and he can look to hit that back post. Højlund to make the move. Højlund's move, as we mentioned before, his movement, as we mentioned before, really, really good, but needs to improve his heading. If you can get more deliveries, natural deliveries from the right-hand side, fantastic. You know, when you speak to Alan Shearer, I spend Saturdays with Alan Shearer on the radio. It's absolutely fantastic to chat to him before. One of the big things that he spoke about with his goal scoring is it's much easier to understand the flight of the ball and attack the flight of the ball of an outswinger versus an inswinger. So when we talk outswingers and inswingers, it's kind of natural foot, natural side. You know, we usually see fullbacks being that option, but with Pellistri being right-footed, he can drop that ball to the back post. Obviously resulted in a goal for Pedro in Uruguay, dropping the ball on his head, easy goal. So this is another little thing that I quite like from Pellistri. When the fullback is wide, he does move inside. That tactical awareness that we spoke of before. When we're talking about that tactical variation, that's, let's say, Aaron Wan-Bissaka receiving in a wide area. Let's say Casemiro and Amrabat are now holding. Maybe Diogo Dalot inside, Amrabat as a half-back, which is exactly how United should set, like this. This is how United start winning football games. But let's say Aaron Wan-Bissaka's received wide, Pellistri taking up that inside channel. He will make movements in behind the defence. I like that he underlaps. He underlaps really, really well. So if the fullbacks, you know, in a wide area, can slide him through in behind the defence, again, creating a good opportunity, you know, opportunities for Manchester United. So let's take a look at that for Pedro. Again, fullback wide, Pellistri inside. Simple ball into the channel, Pellistri making that inside movement. What I like about this, why I've got multiple clips here, is have a look at his head movement. So from that position, fixed on the ball, he's building a picture. He's starting to build a picture. You know, he's having a look where his teammates are. Again, having another look where his teammates are. Gets to the ball, knows exactly where the striker's going to move to. Near post, great ball into the box, and it's well defended. But it's similar things like that. It's kind of like, you know, awareness that I quite like about him. that will hopefully build a really good right winger come the future. In there. But yeah, it's going to be a big one. Matt had in the chat, Pellistri starts quite consistently for Uruguay, to be honest, before a World Cup, including the World Cup and onwards with the managerial change. A guarded viewer, but he hasn't played for Uruguay recently. Played in the 2 games over the international break. Started the game against Chile and also and came off the bench against Ecuador. So he basically needs more minutes. I think that's the big thing with Facundo Pellistri, is that he's very raw. He's a player that's not played much football, and that's kind of the frustration with Manchester United is, we roll the minutes here. So Facundo Pellistri in European football, so I'm talking the 3 seasons that he's been in European football, he's played 1,547 minutes. If you compare that to Marcus Rashford, to the season before he turned 21, he played 10,407 minutes. Just to read those again, 1.5 thousand versus 10,000. So basically, Marcus Rashford had played, so much more football than Pellistri at this point. 10,000 minutes versus 1,000 minutes is absolutely crazy. But you look even further than that. Pellistri's made 18 starts in European football. At the season before turning 21, Rashford had made 110 starts. This is the difference in development, and Man United have really let him down. And in fact, in the time Pellistri's been in Europe, he's made twice as many appearances that he has for Manchester United, 13-6. It's just a bit frustrating in that mindset, in that manner. And, you look at the Uruguay stuff and how he's played for Uruguay over the years in qualifying and so forth. There's just more appearances. There's more games. There's more game time. There's just nothing for Manchester United, really. No, the game against Charlton Athletic, probably the performance against Real Betis, and that is about it. He's just simply not got the time or the minutes. You look at the Uruguay, he's playing more times against Uruguay. And as the assist against Mexico was a nice assist, sort of showcasing the play of Pellistri. We picked the move up with him receiving the ball wide. Something we mentioned previously, that tactical awareness. If the fullback is wide, he will move inside. If the fullback's inside, he will move wide. Exactly why you want to see. Winger and fullback being on a diagonal, independent of inside or outside. But what I like about this move is kind of how he kind of manipulates the situation, utilises his pace, but then some real heads-up play in the final third. So the ball's played inside to Valverde. Valverde looking into the feet of Pellistri. What I like about this is the turn into space that he pops off. So the ball's played into his feet. Really good turn out of the back. Gets him down the byline. Foot race. We know how quick he is. Gets ahead of the defender. Then cuts inside, so gets across the defender, which I think is such a big thing that wingers, need to do. It's getting your body across there. So if the winger takes you out, it's a foul. It's a left foot, and it's a really good sort of bit of play. Great first touch out of his feet, accelerates down the outside, brushes that defender off. But what I like, again, we mentioned this before, heads up. We can see that he's utilising, his ability to get his head up. He's utilising that vision, and it's something that we don't see enough in European football for, players that obviously have kind of received that 1-2. We could see it from Man United. Wan-Bissaka inside to Casemiro, little touch around the corner. But from this position, getting your head up in this position and understanding where your teammates are and where they're moving, it's so important because it's really simple stuff, but it kind of shows exactly what you want a winger to do. It's really simple, but too many times we see Man United wingers with real tunnel vision in really key moments of the game. Pellistri gets his head up here, ball crossed. There's a runner that goes across the line, steps over the ball, then he finds Edison Cavani on the penalty spot. It's a great ball. It's a really, really good pass. And it sort of, we're starting to build this picture of Pellistri as a winger and in making good decisions at the right time, but it's simply not played enough minutes. This is the frustration. Got another assist against Venezuela. Mentioned he likes to cut inside. He either looks to cut for the 1-2s or he'll cut inside and then hit the byline. It's exactly what he does here. He's receiving to feet. Got loads of runners ahead of him. That's going to clear out the space in between the lines. Got the midfield line and the defensive line highlighted here. Opens up a nice little channel for him to drive through. What I love about this is now, not only has he, attacked the space in between the lines, he's going to attack the space between the fullback and the centre half. That's exactly what you want to do in this situation as a winger. Good touch, draws the defender in again, as we mentioned. Little 1-2 around the pressure, carries to the byline, great cross. But the way that he slalomed himself in there is kind of that classic jinky style dribbling that you've got to really appreciate. You've really got to appreciate. Superb play from Pellistri in that kind of moment, and it's something that United could do in a sense. There is runners that will spin in behind that should open up space if Pellistri's received out wide for him to kind of drive inside, go to the box, and then try and hit the byline. It's kind of like a really interesting variation, and really good play. And it's nice to see a young player do this. And Pellistri has potential. He's just not been given the minutes so far. At the moment, though, he's working with two of the best coaches on the planet, Marcelo Bielsa with Uruguay, Erik ten Hag with Man United. He's in the right place. But after this entire piece of analysis, I don't know whether it's time for him to start at Manchester United. I think the best way to utilise him is how we are utilising Alejandro Garnacho. I really, really, really do believe that. I think at the moment it's got to be appearances off the bench. When you look at Pellistri for United, he doesn't have the same confidence that he did at Penarol or he did when he plays for Uruguay. That confidence building is so important. He's got potential. He's massively got potential. He's not going to be a world beater. He's not going to be a Ballon d'Or winner, but he's got good quality. He's a nice, natural right winger, which would give good variation to Manchester United's attack. Is he going to save Man United? No. He's not the saviour. He's not the, but he's a good working part. Similar to kind of like a Dan James. That is the similar he's a similar profile to Dan James. He's probably a little bit better on the dribble. His close control's probably better. His vision's probably quite similar to Dan James. Dan James got a few good, nice assists for Man United. I would have kept Dan James on the books because it gives you variation. So Pellistri should be used in this kind of natural right-wing position. If you want a winger to go on the outside and you want a winger to kind of take you to the byline and cross the ball into the box. Quite frankly, United could do with that. With the threat of Marcus Rashford and Højlund in the box for goal scoring and Bruno's late arrival, I don't mind that. I think that's probably quite a good, part of United's game. You think with the likes of, Amrabat coming into the side and basically being the holding midfielder, Casemiro being more advanced, that's another threat at that back post. There's three bodies in there. So it's not a bad thing, guys. It's not a bad thing. Get into the comments, though. Would you start Pellistri this weekend against Brighton? Jumping back into the chat. We need some more likes in here. We're only on 30, guys. We're only on 30, 123 of us in here. I know 30 likes. We could do better than that. Mulder, not an Erik ten Hag signing, but he hasn't loaned him out or sold him like others. He sees something in him. If he doesn't get a shot this window, then he has to move on. I think he should have moved. He should have definitely got a loan last summer. He didn't play. That's the big thing with players. They have to play. It's very, very simple. If they don't play, they're not going to develop. And for a player that kind of played nothing, last season into what he should have done. He just, it's stunting his growth, it really is. And if he don't start to build something now, there's a serious problem. Like we looked last season in the Premier League, he played 64 minutes last season in the Premier League. It's just not enough minutes for a player that's 20 years old. You need more. You need more football than that. We'll talk about the Bayern team a little bit later on. Don't you worry about that. But let's probably focus on to the sort of the game in hand, the match in hand. Man United, I've got a game this weekend. We'll focus on that a little bit later on. Let's dive into the Premier League action that we're going to be focusing on. Any more thoughts on Pellistri? Do let me know. I do think Man United probably for this weekend, I would like to see... probably like to see Scott McTominay in that. I would probably go with Bruno Fernandez wide right. Casemiro, Amrabat base, just to see what Scott McTominay can do as a second striker. Why not? Give that a game. This Mason Mount's not here. The other option would be going for Christian Eriksen. I quite like that as well, to be quite honest. Bruno and Eriksen kind of interchange in position. That's absolutely fine. I like that as well. It's obviously if Amrabat's fit or not, because if Amrabat's not fit, then I probably would go Scott McTominay. So Casemiro holding, Eriksen left, Diogo Dalot in there, and McTominay is kind of a crash player. Player that's going to get in the penalty area, it's going to get shots away, that's going to basically operate as a second striker. Quite a basic second striker role, but something that I think is really good for Scott McTominay's skill set. I think he underlaps well. I think he's good in the penalty area, gets shots off well. His skill set is this. David Moyes would have made him an attacking midfielder, so why don't Man United try him as an attacking midfielder? The other alternative would be going Garnacho wide right. Wouldn't mind that. Give him a go out there. It just feels that Garnacho at the moment is better when he comes off the bench. It really is. I feel like it's just a better position for him right now. Impact sub off the bench. Long term with United, it is just we're in a bit of a strange position again. Amrabat long term will be in the starting 11 at defensive midfield. Casemiro could play as a roaming player. You've got the likes of Mason Mount to come back in. I think he could do a job on the right. When Shaw comes back in, having him as part of the back three, Diogo Dalot as that natural attacker on the right, I think would be a good option. Could even have Casemiro a little deeper. And even Amrabat playing that kind of more advanced roaming role, Mason Mount inside and Diogo Dalot on the overlap. That's what Man United very much could do as a front five. There's a lot of variation. As much as Man United have lost 2 right wingers this week, there's variations. Aidan in the chat. Hey, Dave, you good, mate? Yeah, I'm very good, sir. How are you? Let's hope United get a statement FC win over Brighton. I really hope that as well. I really do. It's been a frustrating few weeks at Manchester United. I think it's just an absolute mess. It is such a mess. But let's move on to a club that aren't in a mess right now, and that is Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham, of course, have got the manager and player of the month. For only the first time in their history in the same month in the season. Of course, they got it last August as well. James Madison with the player of the month in the Premier League. He's been absolutely fantastic, given a real free role under Ange Postecoglou. And I think when you look at his ability to make things happen for this Spurs team, it's absolutely fantastic. 2 goals, 2 assists, but great performances against Brentford, Bournemouth and Burnley. He's the real heart of the team. He's the creative hub. And one of the interesting things, not only is he creating chances, 2.5 key passes per game, 2 big chances created so far, most goals and assists out of any Spurs players, 2 goals and 2 assists, of course. But the interesting one is he's getting shots away. In the Premier League, only Erling Haaland had more shots on target this season than James Madison, and he's very much playing that free role for Spurs. And when we look at their average positions, it very much is in this kind of Ange ball, inverted fullbacks, 4-1-4-1 shape. Madison very much free to roam, free to move around in the final third. And it's great to see him playing and being fit. One of the concerns with James Madison was kind of the hip injury. That's why a lot of big teams didn't look to get him and bring him into the club. But he looks like he's flying at the moment, and it's really, really nice to see. Not only that, we've got Heung-min Son as the number 9 right now. But it's a top formation, top setup, a 2-3-5 formation as we call it. And Madison is absolutely a key part of what happens. From a tactical level, Sarr plays a little bit more as the box-to-box player. At time, we'll see him interchanging with Pedro Porro to build up, or Dejan Kulusevski. They've got a really good triangle on the right wing that combines, that drops, that moves together, that roams and so forth. But Madison is that kind of like, that high player, defends in a more aggressive position, but also has got that freedom to play make. Ange ball is absolutely fantastic. I am a big fan. There is big space for the centre halves to defend on the flanks, which Sheffield United could play into, but the fullbacks tuck in to operate in the ball option, which gives Madison and Sarr that ability to attack those inside channels. And Heung-min Son is probably the perfect false 9 for this team. Heung-min Son, of course, scored a hat-trick last week, his best expected goals that he's registered in 3 seasons. He had 5 shots on goal, scored a hat-trick. I love the little dink for his first goal over the keeper. Absolutely fantastic. But an XG of 1.12. This is a player that you want in your fantasy team. It just works and makes sense. You look at his positional sense as a false nine. It's really good. It's compact. It's there. And I also give a shout out to Solomon. I think Solomon is a perfect system player. Was with De Zerbi, Shakhtar Donetsk. Good system player that provides the width in the final third, created 5 chances in the game, more than any other Spurs player. He's an asset for Tottenham Hotspur right now, but I do think they are flying at the moment. And talking about Ange Postecoglou, they're really flying. In the Premier League, Spurs are ranked first for progressive carries, equal first for carries into the box, second for final third carries, and successful dribbles, third for combined goals and assists, fourth for progressive passes, and final third passes. They're basically doing everything, right. It is this kind of quick progression out wide to the wingers. It is the wingers carrying into the final third, taking people on and getting crosses away on both sides. It is that link play, in the inside channel with the 2 central midfielders and Son. It's absolutely fantastic. And I feel that they are really starting to grow as a team. Only in the 2009-10 season have Tottenham earned more points in the opening 4 games as they've done in the Premier League this season. Victory against Sheffield United will put them on 13 points after 5 games, a record they haven't had in a league campaign since the 1965-66 season. And obviously Madison, key part of that, key part of how they're doing. Of English players, than James Madison. Only Harry Kane and Saka have got more goal involvements than James Madison. 43 goal involvements since the start of the 2021-22 season. They are flying. Tottenham are flying. And Ange Ball is rocking. In terms of obviously their opponents this week, it's going to be a very, very tough game for Sheffield United. I have not really been impressed with Sheffield United at all. They are far too open in a defensive sense. They haven't really got a Premier League level side, I would say. This is going to be a really tough game because I think Spurs are probably the form team in the league. DB Cooper, we chatted about Man United at the start. Well, Pellistri. I'm going to speak about Man United in a second. Have a little look at the Brighton game. But if you want to check that, you can obviously rewind the stream and go back to the start. Amrabat not pitching in training. Hannibal also an option. Yeah, nobody asked about Amrabat in the presser today, which I found was a little strange. So, hopefully that can work out. Vatzel, I think an age thing is just a recent trend. Starting playing regular first team football at 21 is nothing wrong. The low is the same. I think that's a very good point. It's just that now he needs game time. It's really, really, really the time. Mahad, Sheffield United sold their better players to Burnley as well. Sander Berg, absolutely. The one player that basically the entirety of their season relies on them staying up is Cameron Archer. I think a sensational signing. I don't understand why Villa let him go. I think he's brilliant. I think he could be utilised for Villa in the Conference League. I think he can give him some good minutes there. And they're obviously gone, they've got a buyback in the contract. His numbers against Everton last week were fantastic. He was really good in the first half. Completed 100% of his passes, 16 touches, 2 ground duels, 1 dribble completed, and a really good goal from the edge of the box. Of course, he forced the second as well after hitting the post, which rebounded and went in off Jordan Pickford. I think the only thing that you look at, what Sheffield United could do well, it is that kind of the long ball play to Ollie McBurney and then playing off with Cameron Archer playing off. I think that the link is there. They've been he was a handful against Everton. Everton are quite a physical side. They do deploy the 2 strikers, so for Spurs, with the system we kind of mentioned, there is a lot of space in the channels. This is exactly where Sheffield United need to attack Spurs, is in these wide areas. So if you can utilise, either a wing back on the counter-attack getting into that zone, cross into the box, or alternatively Archer moving from in to out into the wide area to link, or alternatively, Gustav Hamer, as we saw for the first goal for Sheffield United, he moved out and put a really good ball into the box. He's been quite impressive, Gustav Hamer. I think he will stay in the Premier League, quite frankly. You can see how he operates in the channels quite a lot. If he can get into the wide area, then, cross the ball, Burnley knocked down, Cameron Archer goal could be a good avenue for success against Tottenham Hotspur. It's going to be really, really tough, though. I really do think it's quite tough. There was space for Brentford with Mbermo and Wissa with one of the opening games in the Premier League for Tottenham. We look at that as a maybe an example, as a blueprint to get at Tottenham. They were kind of exposed, especially behind Emerson Royale. You can see how high Mbeumo's positioning was in the wide areas, utilising that right channel. So if maybe Cameron Archer can pull himself left or right, get behind Spurs, could work out quite well. Shouldn't McTominay be getting a chance of starting 11 after what he's done for Tottenham? Reece, absolutely. We had him in our starting 11 just then. I think with with Bruno Fernandez wide right, McTominay at number 10. That is his skill set. It is his skill set. Absolutely. That's all. Dave, have Spurs been playing as well as the hype? I absolutely love watching them. I really would recommend watching them. That's all. They're a great watch. They really are a good watch. It's just exactly how I like football. The fullback's inside, the fullback's inverted, that three-man base in midfield. Two very much free eights in an attacking area, wingers wide, false nine striker. It's just great to watch. It is really good to watch. But anyway, guys, it's not about the football, is it? It's about results. Get your score predictions in for this game today. Spurs versus Sheffield United. I think from a fantasy football perspective, I will be getting Heung-min Son into my team because he's going to score loads of goals this season. He just really is. So it's kind of, building off the back of that. Richarlison's not going to be the 9 anymore, I don't believe. So it's kind of looking at what there is going forward for Tottenham, for Heung-min Son. But in there. Mahad's jumped into the chat. Spurs 4, Sheffield United 1. Decent score prediction. DB Cooper's going to go Sheffield United shock 1-0 win. That's pretty big. I think Spurs will continue. I think 4-5-1 Spurs I'm going to go with in there. Onana or Turner this week for fantasy. I don't massively like Turner as a goalkeeper. I'd always go Andre Onana. But Onana's likely to concede against Brighton because they create so many opportunities. Who have Nottingham Forest got this weekend? They have got Burnley on Monday night at home. It's not a bad shout, Goober, but I'd expect Burnley to score against Nottingham Forest as well. I'd go Andre Onana, I'm going to be honest. Vatsal in the chat, 2-0 to Spurs maybe. Sheffield United just need to somehow survive this season, I feel. I think they are probably done and dusted already. We did a revised Premier League review and we relegated Luton, Sheffield United and Everton. 3 of the bottom 4 sides. Sheffield United haven't looked great this season. I'd love them to stay up. I really would. I'd enjoy it. But I don't think it's going to happen in there. So let's move on to our next Premier League game. The next up, we have got Manchester United's game with the mighty Brighton. And I do say mighty Brighton without a joke in my voice. Brighton, like Spurs, are such a good team to watch. They are my 2 favourite teams. They really, really are brilliant. They just give you they give me so much joy. Wolves, I just feel are a bit weird. Like they're a weird hot and cold side that just feel like they might just stay up. Do you know what I'm saying? They'll like kind of sneak their way through in there. Very different than sort of the teams we're talking about. The sides that are super dominant in the league, your Brightons and so forth. It's going to be a really tough game for Manchester United. United and Brighton have played some decent games over the last few seasons in there. And I do think, looking at the recent games between the two sides, they are so close. Of course, it was a last-minute penalty for a super dodgy handball that McAllister put away, in the last Premier League game. The FA Cup semi-final went to penalties. I was at Wembley. That was a shocking game in 90 minutes. But, United won the penalty shootout. And previously, Brighton winning 2-1 with Graham Potter in charge that started that really poor start to the season. That was the season before, wasn't it? Jeez. What an absolute battering. 4-0. So yeah, the teams have obviously, they've been at each other. And I think one of the big things with Manchester United, how do you cope with the box? How do you cope with with Brighton? And I think from a tactical perspective, we know what Brighton, are so good at. It is that kind of drawing the press on. And why I feel like Scott McTominay could be really useful in this game is because of that, that box threat that they create. With Brighton, either they build with the two strikers dropping off the lines and the two wingers wide. Got to change Man United around a sec. Got to put Wan-Bissaka to right back, Diogo Dalot to left back. It's alternatively building with this kind of 4-2-2-2 line with the wingers wide with balls into the feet. So what I feel like Scott McTominay could be utilised really well here is that kind of natural pressing ability. Manchester United as well should probably narrow themselves off in a possession sense, potentially utilising a 4-2-3-1 shape. In a defensive sense. The issue with United last time we played Brighton is the outballs to Estapiñán and Joel Veltman at times were on every single day of the week. So maybe utilising that narrow press isn't the way to go. But I do think Scott McTominay in the team will give United good energy at the top end of the pitch, but also that kind of box threat, to utilise that counter-attacking sort of environment for Manchester United. It is going to be a super interesting game. We could also see him build up. We see Veltman come inside, Pascal Gross moving a little higher, and Brighton creating this kind of, five-man attack. The big area where Man United need to attack Brighton is here. This is the zone. Is exactly where United need to attack. Marcus Rashford on the left wing. That is a big, big part of Man United's offensive game. And if we take a look at some of the stuff from the game against Arsenal, obviously Man United playing well in that game and unfortunately losing the match. But I think some of the good stuff that we saw from that game was the kind of the ability to hit teams on the counter into the channels, and that's what United need to do against Brighton. It is very much, jumping into that left channel and attacking that left channel. For Marcus Rashford's goal, of course, it came from United in their deep block. Christian Eriksen reading the play really well, reading that square pass, intercepting, and then freeing Marcus Rashford. You can already see this is exactly the same structure Man United want against Brighton. Rashford, in a semi-half counter-attacking position, when the ball's on the other side of the pitch, having him high, with Ben White inside, and then that ability to get in behind him. It's so important, to split the fullbacks and the kind of the centre halves in these games. It's exactly what United need to do against Brighton. Have Brighton in that kind of offensive shape. Marcus Rashford counter-attacking on the other side, breaking in behind the defence, through ball utilising, then Rashford can do the rest. The way that he again sat down the two Arsenal players, chopped on the inside, really good finish. This is how United can get at Brighton. From a tactical level, it's that type of play. It's sitting deeper, it's making interceptions in the middle of the pitch. It's really important to kind of release Rashford in that sense, releasing Rashford behind or releasing Rashford, when Veltman's in a narrow position, in behind kind of the defence and utilising that pace to cut in and shoot. So yeah, that's definitely an avenue for Manchester United to get behind Brighton. Brighton's interchanging passing. We'll take a look at that in a second. But Rasmus Højlund, Manchester United, what to expect? We saw after his cameo against Arsenal a really good centre forward, cameo in a sense of holding the ball up. There was some good link play. For the Garnacho goals, really good bit of link play where received to feet, then a little back heel to Casemiro, then Casemiro looked for the through ball. Fantastic. Rasmus Højlund is a threat. He's going to be a threat in the channels for this game as well. If Rashford's stretching the left-hand channel, Højlund stretching the right channel, he's just going to start to be a real threat for opposition defenders. I think one of the big things as well is closing people down. He's got that ability to close the distance super aggressively and look to win the ball back. I can't wait to see him properly play for Manchester United against Arsenal. We had 10 touches, 2 passes completed and a shot. But he uses physicality well in that match. His ability to cause problems for both Arsenal centre-backs, especially Gabriel as a left centre-back, was pretty big. And you compare, his his play versus someone like Anthony Martial. You want Højlund there every single day of the week. I really believe he's going to be a superstar for Manchester United, and I can't wait to see him play. He progresses the ball as an option, running the channels. He finishes well, and again, Man United could utilise his physical threat in the box. Think about him in the box with a Rashford in the box at the back post. Chef's kiss. Obviously, in terms of this game, that ball into the channel could be good, but also the ball into the left channel. Brighton really struggled against West Ham United when Mikel Antonio was moving from central areas out wide, but also when Ben Rama was staying high, and they were basically playing into the space behind Webster from deep. We're looking at Lisandro, who's got one of the best clips in European football. That ability for him to get it in behind the defence, or Højlund to make that run into the channel and then get it behind the defence, is vitally, vitally important in this game for Manchester United to even stick in it. This is going to be a real tough game for United, but at home United have been decent, but they started really slowly against Nottingham Forest. I think from a perspective of looking at what Brighton might utilise and do, it is the play in between the lines. It is kind of the interchange. But I think one of the things United need to be really ready for is the straight away, the pressure that Brighton put on opposition teams. And that's something that United have kind of struggled with at times with the opposition. And if we take a look at kind of Evan Ferguson defending from the front, will start this game. United need to be super careful. The way that Ferguson shadows off the ball, blocks the ball back to the goalkeeper in the centre half, close the play down, then the athletic ability to make that block, it's really, really good. Move forward to, other parts of the game, operating off the line. United need to be super aggressive in this match, and it's got to be Lindelof and Lisandro Martinez for this match, because, when Brighton get to these positions where they've got, the forward up, this kind of the positional base is really set. You're ready to go. I think one of the big things that United need to be utilising if, for example, Ferguson drops off the line, it's that real aggression on the blind side. If you allow them to play through and play their passes, they'll just create space for Billy Gilmour to get on the ball. And Billy Gilmour's got a good range, got a good passing. I thought he was very, very good against Newcastle United just before the international break. So stopping that is important, because if you allow Brighton to do this, and if Brighton can utilise, Ferguson into Ferguson's feet, him being able to turn and thread the likes of Solly March in behind, alternatively on the other side, utilising João Pedro into feet, and again, Freddie Matoma in behind. That's definitely an area where United could really struggle if they don't be aggressive. And I think that's super, super important. It's also kind of Casemiro being responsible on the cover as well, that if, for example, Lindelof's jumped onto João Pedro, it's Casemiro taking up that centre-back position. It's being really responsible with the defending. If, for example, Martinez has dropped, same thing, Casemiro being responsible on both sides. He's got to play as a bit of a stopper centre-half in this game for me to stop, passages of play that will just simply overload and open up Manchester United. This is a prime example of this happening. Ball into the feet of Ferguson. Dan Burn is a little bit cautious with his aggression, drops off too much because he's worried about that movement in behind from Pascal Gross. So just taking this example as as a tactical setup here. So the issue that United will have in these kind of moments is that you've got Pascal Gross in a high position, and the ball's going to be played into Ferguson. The defender's going to track, which is open up that space for Gross to get in behind with a bit of combination play. And that's something that United really need to avoid. Space is there between Dan Burn and Ferguson. United can't allow that space there. He's dropped in. The big thing, though, you look at how Brighton have manipulated Newcastle's midfield line. Really compact there. Bruno Guimaraes is close to Billy Gilmour, prime pressure as that central in a midfield three. Tonelli's providing the depth and the cover on the left-hand side, just a nice little defensive structure. But the space that's opened up for Billy Gilmour, just with that passing combination, is big, and United really can't have that. So I feel with Scott McTominay as well, him absolutely hounding Billy Gilmour. He has to physically bully Billy Gilmour in this game. He really does. He has to get around him. He has to be physical. He has to stop him playing. Because if you allow Billy Gilmour to play, he can really play. But that kind of the theme of their forwards dropping off the line is a key theme of their game plan. Similar thing here. First time pass. This is the danger, as we saw before. If from a tactical perspective, if you can utilise that ball into the feet of Ferguson, round the corner to Pascal Gross, Solly March in behind, you've got problems. Or alternatively, Ferguson simply turning the ball and then playing through to Solly March on the overlap. Similar big problems. And we see that in this little move. He could potentially, Ferguson could go into the feet of Gross and then it be fed, but he doesn't. He just turns himself and plays through. United have got to be touch tight. They have got to be touch tight with their two forwards dropping off, and they've got to have Casemiro sweeping in behind to cover those runners. This is a perfect game for Amrabat, but unfortunately I don't think he's going to be fit for the match. And when you don't, utilise that and you don't, cover that movement in behind the defence, you've got serious problems. And not only has he got, Brighton got that ability to play through and look for those runners, but if you leave, Ferguson in positions where he's received in between the lines, he can absolutely destroy you. And we saw that last week against Newcastle United again with one of the goals of the season for me. Just such a brilliant goal. And it's a similar setup where, Brighton aren't aggressive enough. Newcastle aren't aggressive enough on Billy Gilmour. He even takes a bad first touch in midfield. That's a bad first touch. They're not aggressive enough. It allows Ferguson to react, receive the ball into feet, turn completely on his own. That is where Lisandro or Victor Lindelof needs to be at the feet, snapping. Don't allow the turn, because it's just too easy. It simply passes the ball in the back of the net from about 30 yards. It's a really, really good goal. Fantastic goal, but you got to stop that. You have to stop that. And United's defensive midfield line is going to be vitally important to stopping that. Got to be aggressive on Ferguson. Into feet, got to be on his back. Cover's got to come in from midfield. Casemiro is so important in this match. He's got to be so fast to drop into that defensive line, become a centre-back. It's basically a half-back in a defensive sense. We talk about half-backs on the ball where they split centre-halves and they drop in between. Casemiro needs to operate as a half-back off the ball in that sense of Martinez goes to cover into feet, then he drops into cover. That covering position, vitally important. Really, really important. I do think that's kind of a level. Would it not be better to invert Delot? Delot's going to have a battle against Solly March. I think one of the big things with Delot on this as a left-back is he can cover that inside drive. We know that March will chop into that left foot as much as he will kind of go on the outside. So having Diogo Delot, stronger foot on the inside, blocking that is kind of what I'd prefer to see in there. With Manchester United, it is very much looking to stop Brighton, and you've got to respect them. They are such a good football inside, and when you look at kind of what they've got in depth as well, we look at Joao Pedro and Evan Ferguson as their best front two, you'd say. He's definitely, got options. Danny Welbeck's someone that could play for Brighton. You've got other, players and forwards that can join their attacking line. They're just a very, very well-built squad. Ansu Fati is there, It's pretty crazy. And you look at the improvements Joao Pedro's made already. He's been criticised for his performances. West Ham and Wolves were criticised by De Zerbi. Came back against Newcastle United and defensively was very, very good. 2 interceptions in the game. Won 100% of his aerial duels as well, which is very, very important. You're looking at a player that can really evolve. But it is about Ferguson. Ferguson is the guy that Man United need to stop. He's the guy that Man United should also sign as well. I think he has got such quality. You're looking at players with 5+ non-penalty goals since the start of last season. Only Haaland and Bobby Firmino have got a better minutes to non-penalty goal rate than Ferguson. You're looking at players to have scored more goals, either aged 18 or below. Michael Owen, Wayne Rooney and Franny Jeffers are the only players with more goals than Evan Ferguson. He is the guy right now. He is just the guy, and United need to stop him. He is such a good forward. But anyway, guys, get into the chat. Let me know your score predictions for this game. Manchester United versus Brighton. United were unbeaten in 6 league games against Brighton, but since then have lost 3 in a row, conceding 7 goals in the process. Not looking good. Mahad, Dave, remember the days when we were criticising Brighton's recruitment with the likes of Lallana? I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we give Brighton massive credit for the exciting signings, your Matomas, your Estepinians, but the squad is kind of really well built, and Adam Lallana's not played a massive amount, but it'll be good for the squad. And I think the reason why Brighton have continued being good, even though they've lost loads of good players, is because players like Pascal Gross, Solly March, Adam Lallana, you're going back to the defence, Lewis Dunk, Webster, Jason Steele, Danny Welbeck. These are all really good pros. Really good pros. You never hear a bad word about James Milner, Danny Welbeck, causing problems in training or, being annoyed at not being played. Lallana's another one. So it's massively important for United. It really is to build a squad of good personalities. And Brighton have done that in abundance. So you've really got to kind of look at how you do this and how you build the squad. For Man United, obviously on the right wing, we've got to go with Bruno Fernandez to start. I think his ability to switch and hit Rashford, but also hit Højlund in the channels on the reverse, I think is the way to go. In 9 games as a right winger for Manchester United, Bruno Fernandes has got 3 goals and 4 assists. Facundo Pellistri in that role so far has got 1 assist in 11 games. Marcus Rashford has got 42 games, playing on the right wing, and has scored 11 goals and got 7 assists, which isn't a bad record. But we all know that Rashford is much better on the left-hand side. So I do think there's going to be Bruno Fernandes out there, and I do think the passing could really work for Manchester United. Right, let's go score predictions right now. Aiden's going to go 4-4-2, big lads up front, McSauce and Højlund. I'd love to see that. PC Matt in the chat with a Statman Dave, Timo Werner comparison. Score predictions coming in. Goober's going to go 2-1 to United. Mars is going to go 4-2 United, inverted fullbacks into a double pivot. 1 for Rashford, Højlund, Bruno and Casemiro. Chris in the chat is going to go for 2-0 Man United. Plenty of points to prove. Højlund, United, debut at Old Trafford. Lindelof Martinez can handle Ferguson. Do think it's what we were speaking about before, having to play with them in midfield. Centre-halves have got to be aggressive. They've got to go out and pressurise those two. You can't let those boys turn. You really can't. You've got to go man for man in that zone to block it off. And in a sense, it's got to be that kind of... The cover shadows are very, very important. Stopping the balls into feet by using your cover shadow, it's going to be really important in this game. We spoke about the coverage after the pass has been played, but I do think that's got to happen as well. United have got to be nice and compact and narrow. They've got to be blocking the passes across. McTominay being that aggressive angle in there, really important. Mahad's going to go 2-1 United. France is going to go 2-0. And Ryan saying that Ansu Fati looked a bit overweight. Harsh, but I've not seen the pictures. Do let me know if you want me to discuss those pictures. But yeah, let's move on to the last game we're going to talk about today. Do keep your questions coming into the chat. This is going to be Arsenal's game away at Goodison. Everton versus Arsenal in the Premier League. This is a big game for Arsenal. Arsenal have had a lot of big games recently. Beat United well. They stuck in the game and they scored at the right moments. And I do think that's kind of going forward. The one player, though, we've probably got to touch on before we start this, an Everton player who I've absolutely loved, and it's just glad that he's in the Premier League. Simple. It's one man, the centre forward. Beto will be a big reason why Everton stay in the Premier League come the end of the season. Beto, for me, is the perfect striker for Sean Dyche. Not only is he a kind of handful when looking to receive the ball in the channels and running at you, he's a good goal scorer when the ball's wide, but he's also a good player to play through and free in counter-attacking situations. He's also got good ability in the link-up. We saw him create a really good chance for Dan Juma against Sheffield United with a fantastic through ball that Dan Juma should have scored. But he's a player that I like. He scored 10 goals in 33 games for Udinese last season. And, last season for Everton, the top scorer was Dwight McNeil with 7 goals. He can be a physical target man as well, winning 2.2 joules per 90 last season. Everton as well are underperforming their expected goals by 5 this season, which is more than any other side. They've scored 2 goals from an expected goals of 7.3. And I do think Beto is the perfect guy to come in. You look at his game against Sheffield United, he was a physical handful. He ran the channels well, he linked the play well, had 4 shots on goal, completed 6 out of 9 dribbles, 1 chance created, which was that big chance to Danjuma. But it is that physical threat. He's horrible to play against, and he will be the reason why Everton stay in the Premier League. In terms of Sean Dyche, I think one of the concerns that I had against Sheffield United was how defensively open they looked. The Sheffield United goal was quite a simple one. It was a Gustav Hamer ball into the box from like the wide, right position, and it just wasn't defended. It was so easy for Ollie McBurney to take the ball down and lay it off to Cameron Archer to put the ball in the back of the net. Branthwaite is obviously a young defender. Fantastic time at PSV last season. Had a really good spell out there. But I do think he's got to adjust to the Premier League very, very quickly. Like, he's got to be the one that's stopping that cross when it comes in. It was more of a pass than a cross, you'd say, into the feet of Ollie McBurney. So you've got to be dealing with that on the near post. It stops the goal. Or the other side is Ollie McBurney bringing the ball down and simply laying it off. Got to be far more aggressive. Tarkowski and Branthwaite have got to be so much more compact in the penalty area. Everton don't look like a Sean Dyche team at the moment. On average across all competitions, Dyche's Burnley conceded 1.27 goals per game, whilst his Everton team are conceding 1.65 goals per game. And to make matters worse, Everton have kept just 2 clean sheets in the last 16 games under Dyche. I do think, though, we go back to the first game of Sean Dyche's reign in charge, and it was against Arsenal, and it was a brilliant performance, and it asked real questions of Mikel Arteta's side. And it was it was a very, very interesting tactical game. Everton very much went for a 4-5-1, and they had a really flat midfield, which allowed them great coverage. And one of the concerns that that kind of came to the forefront from that performance from Everton was that every time Arsenal received in the wide areas, their wingers that are so important for their chance creation, for their carries into the final third, every single time they were doubled up on. And that really stopped them. And it was very, very interesting to see a team do that, because we hadn't really seen a team, really bully Arsenal in that sense before. So it will be a super interesting game to kind of utilise that and see whether Arsenal have changed, whether they've evolved. I do think one player for this match could be Kai Havertz. It could be a game for the link play between the wide forward and the inside forward. You have a look at the average positions here. It was super narrow. It was forcing Arsenal into areas they didn't want to play, and then hitting them on the counter-attack in narrow areas. The wingers were basically playing as fullbacks. You can see Dwight McNeil, how deep his heat map goes there. That's something that we'd probably see from a wingback, in a big team versus a wide player. Same with Alex Iwobi. A lot of work at right back. So from a tactical level, with this, it's going to be the same thing, with Everton getting nice and deep and narrow, and basically forcing Arsenal to, try and beat them with some interplay. I think one of the big things that, when I did the sort of review on the game, you're thinking about what Arsenal could have done better in this game. It very much was this kind of, this sort of 4-5-1 setup. They should have utilised those inside channels more with combination play. They didn't do that well. There was a lot of time with Saka and Martinelli on the other side of the pitch where they were just doubled up on. And then let's say Havertz would come over, Decore would be super aggressive blocking that out. So I think that could be a really interesting one. The other idea that sort of came out of this game would potentially be if Arsenal slightly tweak their midfield, maybe, they go with a Fabio Vieira who starts a little deeper in there, which would allow Martinelli to play on the inside. So you work the ball out to Zinchenko and then you instantly look for the ball into the feet of Martinelli and then you attack them. I think with Jesus, in the side, I think that's got to be the guy that starts for Arsenal this weekend. In the last game, it was Nketiah who started, and that link wasn't there. But having Jesus off the line is going to be a lot more difficult for Everton to deal with. If we do kind of utilise the inside channel, it is that kind of 1-2 play, set Martinelli through, shot on goal. There wasn't enough interplay in between the lines, and it really's got to be Gabriel Martinelli who starts. Gabriel Jesus. Gabriel Jesus has scored 8 goals in 9 games against Everton, more than he's managed against any other opponent. He averages a goal against Everton every 71 minutes. The best of any player to play over 500 minutes in Premier League history against the Toffees. So I do think it's got to be Gabriel Jesus that starts. I think it's got to be that link. I think they've got to slightly tweak the setup with Zinchenko for operating as a wide player, maybe Martinelli inside. I think the big thing for Arsenal is just being able to get through these types of matches if they really want to compete with Manchester City. It's kind of a difficult thing to do. You have to sort of stick it out and go for it. The other option for Arsenal would be slightly changing their attack on the right-hand side. So utilising Kai Havertz inside. So Zinchenko comes in, inverted position, which we expect. Martinelli goes out wide. Havertz operates in between the lines. So you've got basically 3 players that operate in between the lines on the left. And then on the right-hand side of the pitch, Odegaard drops, becomes a ball player in a deep position. Ben White high, Saka inside. That would be the other way to do it. With Odegaard being part of a 2-3-5 structure. I'd like to see Arsenal try this. Martin Odegaard has got such ability. And when we look at the evolution of Martin Odegaard, I think it's a good way to kind of maybe see where he's going to go. Because so far at Arsenal, Martin Odegaard... I start that all again. Just jumping into the chat. Any more thoughts for you guys? Apparently Amrabat's out for 3 weeks. Some news there. Everton haven't played great, but they could frustrate Arsenal from Alvin. I kind of agree with that. Alvin's also going 4-3 Manchester United. Vatsal's going to go 3-2 United win over Brighton. But Martin Odegaard has been the most important player under Mikel Arteta. Not only his leadership, his ability on the ball, his link play with Saka, but also his goals. He scored a fantastic goal last week in the Premier League against Manchester United. And that's something that we've come to expect from Martin Odegaard in this Mikel Arteta side. He is a powerful, powerful goal scorer. His ability to hit the penalty area late is absolutely fantastic. It's a massive trait of Arsenal's setup and side. And I think going forward, I think he could definitely develop into a deep line playmaker. It could allow Arsenal to play a slightly different setup, a 2-3-5 structure against teams that play a 4-5-1 defensive element. Arsenal are just about to get a new contract signed with Martin Odegaard, and that is going to be so big for Mikel Arteta and the Gunners. But just looking from a tactical sense, this kind of right triangle, it would be Odegaard deeper. What that would give you is a better ball player deeper to split the lines. It would mean that Everton have now got to have someone that's jumping out and pressing, which consequently could open up more space for balls in between the lines from Odegaard to Saka and Jesus to combine. I feel like with Odegaard deeper, you pull Onana out or you pull Idrissa Gana Gueye out. You basically pull somebody out of the position, or Decore, which basically means you've got more space in between the lines after that. And having Ben White wide, we saw how well he started to become as a wing back in the final third. His delivery's got a lot better. When you've got him attacking that area, then you've the likes of Saka, Havertz, Martinelli loading the box. Could be a good way for Arsenal to attack. And that's kind of what I'd like to see Arsenal do. It is going to be a humongous game for Sean Dyche and Everton. They've got to deal with a lot of quality that Arsenal have got to give. And you look at what Arsenal did in the game against Manchester United and the goal they scored, it was simply sublime. It was classic Arsenal football, and it's something that we just see over and over again with Mikel Arteta's side as a repetition with the way that they move, with the way that they kind of hold on to the ball and the positional movement. And I do think Kai Havertz in this game, we're going to go Kai Havertz to start, could be vitally important. How he moves off the ball against Manchester United is kind of super important to how they score this goal. The rotation of Zinchenko going wide, Martinelli coming inside, that's something that we literally just spoke about on the left wing at times for Arsenal. You know, if that base is the same as what we had before, Zinchenko could play a little higher. You know, Declan Rice and Odegaard could be at the base, and then Zinchenko would rotate like this. We see Martinelli come inside, Havertz drop off, which creates the channel into feet. Great little flick, Zinchenko on the overload, and Nketiah free in between the lines. Decent cutback, one touch pass to Martinelli, and simply a cutback for Odegaard to score, arriving late in the penalty area. This is absolutely brilliant. You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it. Mahad, a little update in the chat. Not seeing anything about Amrabat being out for 3 weeks. He will be out for the game against Brighton. Ten Hag expects him to be fit soon. Ten Hag expects 27-year-old to be fit again soon. Big dates on the horizon domestically and abroad. Hopefully Amrabat soon, so that potentially means Scott McTominay starts for United. But Arsenal, I expect them to fly and get out of the blocks early against Everton. But there are my thoughts. Get into the comments below, guys. Let me know your score predictions right now. Arsenal's game with Everton. Get in right now and let me know what you're thinking. It's going to be a good one. I can't wait to just sit back and enjoy it, to be quite honest. It's, the football's back. I can't wait to go to United versus Brighton. It's going to be so much fun. So much fun. Anybody seen any news on Heung-min Son being injured? I don't believe that's happened, but I'm just saying from a fantasy football perspective, you know, is that the case? Mahad's going to go 2-0 to Arsenal. Like it. Like it, like it, like it. One from the Goober in the match. Just trying to see if there's any Heung-min Son news. We've got Football London saying they're spotted back in training. I think they're absolutely fine. I think Heung-min Son's absolutely fine. I think that's going to be the transfer for this week, guys. From a fantasy football perspective, I think we're going to go either, I don't know if we'll go Nathan Ake or Statman to start. Statman's not exactly for the defensive returns, but the attacking returns. Nathan Ake against West Ham, obviously, you know, he's a physical player, Premier League player in there, but I think everything else will stay the same. Foden to Son is going to be my move this week. Dave, look at the fixtures after. So the big thing with Son and Spurs, I just think they're going to create against everybody. I really do. And I know that they've got Arsenal and Liverpool next. I just have a feeling that Son is just going to fly. I understand what we're saying with the fixtures. Then they are tough. Arsenal away and then Liverpool at home. But I just think Spurs at the moment, they're playing some great stuff. They really are. And I think they'll take I think Ange won't go away from attacking. I really don't. I think that Ange will continue with the offensive approach against everybody. So just think at the moment, you know, you get him in for Sheffield United, you have him Arsenal, Liverpool, which aren't the greatest fixtures, but I think it's a great player, great attacking player for a great team. And you got Luton, Fulham, Palace. Those are great fixtures as well. I just love Heung-min Son. So he will be coming into the team, I do believe. Leaves us 0.5 million in the bank. Well, guys, that's that for today. We've had a great chat about all things football, Premier League, analysed. Facundo Pellistri, analysed. Højlund, analysed. Odegaard, analysed. Fantasy football, chatted about. So that'll be us for today. Thanks, everyone, for stopping by. It's been great, as always. And we'll be back next Friday. The one thing I would say, though, next Friday we're going to be on the Statman Dave main channel. We're moving everything over. I just wanted to put everything in the same place for you wonderful people. So we're going to start putting everything on the Statman Dave channel. So you get all the Statman Dave content that's in there, but you also get all the Clips channel content as well that's been on this channel. So we're moving everything over so there's one confined space for all this wonderful stuff. But much love to all you wonderful people. Thanks for sticking around for the stream, and we'll be back next Friday for, you know, the big one, the Premier League preview. Back again. Mahad, shout out to you as well, my brother. Thanks for the help in the chat.